Before we start our project, let's go over the supplies and tools that we'll need to make a soiree necklace. Everything starts with the button. If you have a kit, of course, we have picked out all of your fabulous materials for you. If you are working from the supply list, you're going to want to start by acquiring your button. This is a 36 millimeter check glass button, and it needs to be that exact size. They're not hard to find. Just Google 36 millimeter check glass button, but make sure it's that size. They come larger, they come smaller, and if you have the wrong size, then the button loop won't fit. So begin with your button because that's going to be the focal point, and you'll make all of your other color choices around this button. Next, you're going to need size 11 delicas. I used a mix of colors. For all of our kits, we made a mix. I think this is the best way to get a dynamic color. You could use all one color if you find just the perfect color, but by creating a smooth blend of colors, you can really capture the interest of these beautiful buttons. After you have made your delicate bead soup, you'll want to go on to pick out your fire polish beads. They need to be 3 millimeter check glass fire polish. Those are going to go along the outside of the necklace. Make sure that they are exactly 3 millimeters in their size. That's what they'll be called when you're looking for them. But fire polish beads come in lots of different sizes, and they need to be the 3 millimeters, otherwise they won't fit properly. So here you can see that the fire polish beads fit perfectly in the space left by the demi beads. Sizing is critical in the soiree necklace. This is not a project where you should be experimenting. Please stick to the supply list and use all the sizes as indicated. You're going to need 2 types of size 8 Toho demi beads, and you'll need these in 2 colors. Color A is the color that is braided in, and color B is used in the embellishment down the center. So that's color A along the edge. And then these bronze ones running down the center, that's color B. Again, no substitutions here. They need to be size 8 Toho demi beads. There are a lot of other beads that seem similar, but they're not the same size. So no Miyuki spacer beads, no check O beads. You can't use a round seed bead here. You can't use a different size of demi. It needs to be size 8 Toho demi bead. They fit perfectly with the size 11 delicas. Next up, for the embellishment, we're going to need size 15 seed beads. These could be either Miyuki or Toho. No preference there. They run down the center of the braid with the color B demis. You don't really see them as individuals. You just read their color overall. We get a beautiful tapestry of beads down the center of the soiree when we join the 2 sides together. So we're really just reading the overall color. Finally, you'll need size 11 and size 8 round seed beads for the tassel. This is an important distinction. We're using size 11 delicas for the braid because they're perfect little cylinders, and sizing wise, they just have the correct proportions to work with the size 8 demis. But for the tassel, we're using round beads, and that's because the delicas sort of lock together when you string them, and they make your tassel stiff. It doesn't swing nicely. So round seed beads, that's a standard seed bead. So you want size 11 and size 8 round seed beads. Again, you could use Toho or Miyuki. I don't have a preference there for the tassel. On many of our kits, we used Miyuki seed beads. Even though we mostly stock Toho beads at the shop, we special ordered Miyuki beads because oftentimes we found that we were able to get colors to better match the delicas since they're the same manufacturer. After you have selected all of the beads for your project, you'll need something to braid them on. We're going to be using Superlon Micro. Superlon Micro is sometimes also called Tex 70. If you're looking for it online, comes in a little spool like this. You're going to want to pick a color that's going to blend in with the delicas. And then you'll also need a beading thread, 1G or KO. Those 2 threads are equivalent, and we use them interchangeably. We just pick out which one is the better color match. You're trying to match the beading thread to the braiding thread. The better the beading thread matches your braiding thread, the more invisible it will be when you're doing the embellishment. As far as tools go, you'll need your usual Kumihimo tools. You'll want a foam Kumihimo disc. Since we're working with the Superlun Micro, you might want to use a newer disc rather than an older disc so that the slots are still holding firm and they're not stretched out. You're gonna need a set of 8 weighted bobbins, as well as 2 plain bobbins. If you don't have plain bobbins, the weighted bobbins do have removable weights. So if you have extra weighted bobbins, you can take the weight out. It is important though that when it calls for a plain bobbin, you use a plain bobbin so we're not adding excess weight to the braid when it's not needed. Of course, you'll want your favorite Kumihimo scissors. You're gonna need a fine point tweezer. This is used when we're tying the knots for the button. So you want a really nice point on this so that you can control where the knot closes. We're also gonna use a locking hemostat. You want one with a smooth jaw. These are available in the jewelry tool department of your bead store or local craft store. We're gonna use this to keep our braid from unraveling at various points when it's off the disc, but yet hasn't been fully contained. You're also gonna need 2 types of needles. We'll be using a big eye needle for stringing the beads that we're braiding with. A big eye needle is 2 pieces of wire that have been soldered together at the end. So the eye runs down the entire length, opens up like this. And then you're also going to want a size 11 beading needle. I prefer the Tulip brand beading needle, but other size 11 beading needles work fine. I like the Tulip needles because of the gold-plated eye. They're easier to thread. And then also the tip of it is ever so slightly rounded, which means you're less likely to pierce your thread when you're doing multiple thread passes. You'll also need 2 cube beads, 2 4mm Toho cube beads, or 2 6/0 round beads. These are tools, they're not part of your project. It doesn't matter what color they are. We're just using them as a stop bead that can accommodate all of the cords of our braid. So round up a couple of those. And then to protect our braid from the jaws of our clip-on center weight that we'll be using, in addition to the weight itself, you want a piece of scrap fabric. The kit has a piece of scrap fuzzy mat, but you could use any sort of scrap fabric, and this is just going to protect our cords from these sharp, clampy jaws. Those are the tools you have to have. Optionally, you might also want a bead spinner and its matching bead spinner needle. It really saves time when it comes to stringing up your beads. I have a whole video on that later on how to use your bead spinner. And that's what you'll need to make your soiree necklace.